everyone, it's Katie Crysdale here from Lakeview Aquatic Consultants. I'm continuing on with this series where I'm interviewing different people adjacent to the aquatic industry. And today I'm really excited to be joined by Theresa Finn, who's going to be talking about a product that I only learned about last week and I think is going to be a real game changer for some of us that have had really serious injuries in aquatics. So welcome, Theresa.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me. I'm sure we're going to have some really interesting conversation. I am the CEO and co-founder of Hammerhead Swim Caps. It is a product that is designed to make swimming safer for all aquatic swimmers, but we started with regular swimmers.
I was so thrilled to come across your product, and I can't take credit. It was a colleague who shared the product with me. But as a longtime lifeguard and pool manager, I cannot even tell you the number of lost time claims I've seen or workplace injuries resulting from misjudged backstroke during a staff in-service or a lifeguard recertification. So talk me through the story behind this product.
So we rewind the tape back to 2013. My business partner, David Burns, I knew him because my son took swim lessons from him. He was probably between 4 and 7 years old. He joined USA Swimming and went to our first meet. This was probably in the late fall of 2012. We just signed up for one day and we knew we didn't know a lot. My husband is a basketball player and I swam recreationally, but I didn't swim competitively. And we noticed that the kids were hitting the wall. They were hitting each other, colliding during warm-ups. And we were fortunate enough to have a gentleman sitting next to us who is a veteran swim parent. And we asked him, these kids keep hitting their heads on the cement wall. What's the deal with that? He's like, oh, it happens all the time. It's just part of the sport. And we were like, didn't really sit well with us, but he had so much to learn. That was just another data input for us. So fast forward to the next summer, it was June of 2013. And my business partner, David, was coaching a summer league team. And we were doing the backstroke clinic on the Saturday morning. And there were probably 40 swimmers in the pool. And my son was 8. His daughter was 8 also, and she came in and miscounted coming into the wall doing the backstroke, and she hit her head. So he immediately consoled her and was trying to kind of be dad and coach at the same time. And we looked up and a 14-year-old came into the wall even harder, and she hit her head and ended up with a concussion. So her mom took her to a clinic to be seen, of course, and David gathered all the swimmers together and said, it's so important. You don't have eyes in the back of your head. Can't daydream. I know it's kind of windy out. You got to just pay really close attention when you're doing your arm strokes to stop your backstroke. And he's like, what do I have to do? Make you guys a helmet? And the kids were like excited. Yeah, we need a helmet. That would be great. We'd love that, especially his daughter, Madeline. So after the practice, David and my husband, Ken, and we were chatting about what had just taken place. And maybe there is something there. I wonder if there's anything on the market that even exists that could help protect swimmers' heads. So that night, my husband's a dentist, so he's pretty crafty with his hands. And he created this non-porous foam insert shaped like a banana. And then we brought it to practice the next day. So we put it inside the silicone cap and it really did what we wanted it to do. So really reduced the impact of the pain on the swimmer's head. And we were hoping then that would translate to less chance of an injury. So we began our journey. We did a patent search with an attorney and found out that there was only one expired patent that was held by the U.S. Navy for divers. And so we checked and did a market search and we didn't find any product that was even close to it. And we spent the next 2.5, 3 years finding a designer, figuring out what software that it would have to be made in, identifying what kind of material we'd use. And then the hardest part was finding the right manufacturers. David and I both had full-time jobs at that time, so we were just giving to the company where we could. We raised money in 2016 with some very generous interested parties. And in 2017, my son was then 16, and he was doing the warm-up for the 2 back in a warm-up pool, which didn't have flags, and he slammed into the wall. He was daydreaming and just thinking about his race, and the paramedics came and they pulled him from the pool for the whole day, and he ended up being out of the pool and out of practice for multiple weeks. So we were fortunate that he didn't interrupt his, he's now swimming NCAA right now, so it didn't interrupt his swimming career, but it was sure a scary moment and just perpetuated the focus that David and I had on getting this product to market. So we thought of it in June 13, and we shipped our first products in May of 2018. Okay.
So is your son is okay now? He doesn't have any long-lasting impacts from that particular collision?
No, he was fortunate to not have any long-term impact, but the whole event was scary. And I'm sure any parent that's had their kid injured in that way experienced that same kind of worry.
It's so refreshing to hear your perspective that you were not, so to speak, a swim parent coming into a sport that your child was interested in, because I have a similar background. Although I was a lifeguard for many, many years, I was also not a competitive swimmer. And so when you first become a lifeguard at the first facility I ever worked at, the lowest totem pole shifts you would get were lifeguarding the swim club. If you've never seen a busy swim club practice, the number of kids they put in a lane, how quickly they're swimming, they have to really do a quick turn into the wall or someone else is going to bump into them. And the number of injuries, passing or a misjudged flip turn, something as simple as the backstroke flags not being in the correct position. They were accidentally left in the wrong position based on where the bulkhead is placed. It's so easy to be injured. And yet I think there is this culture of complacency up until more recently, no different from football, from hockey, that's just part of the sport. Why would we change it? It's the kid's fault if he hits the wall. And I think that's the wrong way of looking at it.
Yeah. And there's so many injuries that go unreported. I mean, that's the part that's really frustrating. And what we've found just from physicians we've spoken to, research we've done, that it's not always just a big slam into the cement wall. It's sometimes a collision with another swimmer. Sometimes it's a bunch of little hits that all of a sudden the final little hit turns into a concussion. So when you rewind back to 2019, when USA Swimming was implementing concussion protocol training, which became mandatory on the deck in 2020, January, we were thrilled. We were just so thrilled that they were identifying that this is an issue, that we need to have some kind of system or process in place to identify when these athletes are injured. But at the same time, we were really disappointed that they didn't do more on a preventative standpoint. And that's really where we come in. We want to prevent ever having that situation where the coach is looking at the athlete and trying to figure out if they've been concussed or not.
And it's so nuanced, like you said. The employee that I recall who had a concussion, outwardly, it was such a small bump on the head. We didn't even think it was an issue. She didn't think it was an issue until she got out of the water an hour later. And then once she was upright on land, it was very apparent that there was something going on. And to this day, she would say, I don't know how that gave me a concussion, but she had several weeks where she had sensitivity to light. She couldn't engage in her normal activities of daily living, couldn't work, could barely keep up with her studies. I mean, it was awful. And she was able to really focus on her recovery so that it didn't create any long-term issues. But I have heard other reports where people have experienced, 3 or 4 concussions unreported because perhaps it's not the culture of that team or the culture of that coach to report these things. And then people have long-term consequences, brain function from these hits.
And what I've always found so interesting is my husband's a swim official. So in the beginning of a big meet, they have coaches meetings and officials meetings. And that's when the pools are so congested with probably more swimmers that are in one lane than in practice. So that's another opportunity or area of risk where the athlete could become injured.
That's such an interesting observation, because you're 100% accurate to my experience that the officials are meeting over coffee and muffins right at 6 a.m. during warm-up when there's 500 kids in the pool and the lifeguards are frantic because you can barely see through the massive bodies. And I've always worried on a lifeguard side that, we can't see the bottom of the pool. That's the number one rule in lifeguarding. But talk us through the actual design of your product in terms, what does it do that other caps are not able to do?
So it's, for the first time ever, a combination of features that have never been together in one product. So here's what it looks like from the outside. So it's pliable and feels a lot like any swim cap that most people have grown up with. This is where we have our design patent. Can you see that? It's a honeycomb system. At the highest point, it's about 3/4 of an inch thick, and then it tapers down smoothly, so you really can't see it from the outside. Beautiful byproduct of that, or special sauce, that a lot of swimmers will buy dome caps, and they're smooth on the exterior, so there aren't wrinkles or drag when they compete and they'll go through the water. Hammerhead is completely smooth on the exterior. There are no seams, so we've never had one tear. And they come in 3 sizes. So the focus is really safety first. Performance, which every coach and athlete wants and every parent wants, right? Durability, we stand behind it for a full year that it won't tear. If it does, we'll replace it, but that hasn't been an issue. And then comfort. It is a really nice premium silicone. So we've found with the sensory sensitive community or special needs community that they really like how it feels when they put it on and take it off, which can make or break whether or not that athlete would actually put a cap on. This is the front. Our logo is always in the front. And if you have long hair, you'd want to do a low pony and then tuck the hair up in the back. So if you do like to double cap, a lot of athletes will double cap during a race. So they'll practice in Hammerhead, and then on race day they'll put their Hammerhead on, put their goggles on, and then put their team cap over. And that will contour to that smooth surface. So they'll still enjoy the benefit of the performance aspect of the Hammerhead.
What has been the feedback in your community or in clubs in general to a product like this? Because I think it's an amazing idea, but I can imagine some old school coaches or clubs not taking the issue seriously, maybe.
Well, it's interesting. I've partnered with a company and we do 2 roundtable meetings every month. And I'll tell you, they've been so well attended. It's really helping us as a brand develop and expand a grassroots effort to make swimming and really all aquatic sports safer. So I'll have swim instructors, swim school owners, I'll have swim coaches, I'll have swim parents that are infuriated that there aren't any mandates for athletes concussed a couple times, different consultants in the industry, water polo coaches, divers. And it's really been cool to have people converge in a 1-hour call. The goal is to really keep focused on the topic of concussions and head injuries in aquatic sports, and then really dive into what their challenges are and what's working and not working for them. And then I expand on what Hammerhead has done and really the shift from being a parent thinking, oh my gosh, there's nothing I can do about this, it's just part of the sport, to when my husband created that insert and we realized we can actually make a change. We can actually improve head safety in swimming. So once they engage and they identify that they want to be part of the solution and have it be part of their legacy, they've been just amazing at being part of our affiliate program and spreading the word and educating coaches in their network. And so that's been a wonderful experience. And that's been something that's really exploded here in 2024. If you know Missy Franklin, the America's Sweetheart swimmer, her father, Richard Franklin, is a very accomplished businessman and has a great deal of experience with helmetry in sports. He was with Cooper when they introduced the hockey helmets. And of course, these tough guys said, heck no, I don't want to wear a helmet. So he's the chairman of our advisory board at Hammerhead, and he's been talking strategy and talking about, hey, the industry's not doing anything. Why don't we try to create some groundswell from the bottom up and really try to get some traction around at least awareness that a product like this exists. So that's been amazing. Just so inspiring to me. I feel like they have the same passion I do. And so that has been a great move for us as a brand to really get people who are like-minded to help spread the word about a product that never existed before. So to answer your question about the swim industry, I would say the coach either gets it or they don't. Mm-hmm. I remember when I was downtown Minneapolis at the University of Minnesota, I was with Richard Franklin, and we were at a big NCAA swim meet, and Rowdy Gaines was there. So Richard said, let's meet with Rowdy and let's show him the Hammerhead and see what he thinks. He took a look at it. He was, holding it in his hand, and he's like, wow, this looks like it might be kind of heavy. And I said, well, why don't you turn it inside out? So he did, and he saw the honeycomb system inside, and he's like, wow, this is really cool. So I said, okay, now you have to try it on. So he tried it on. He's like, this is amazing. Like, I've seen hits happen all the time, and I just never knew that there was anything to help fix the problem or bring a solution to the table. So he became a believer. We've got a number of other Olympic endorsements. Josh Davis, Dr. Gary Hall Sr., who's also an Olympian, and as well as his son. Gary Hall Sr. is the one that tested the cap. So we took Hammerhead to an independent, third-party test facility, and we tested it for safety. And that was a drop test at 2, 4, and 6 miles an hour. And we were comparing it to a silicone cap or a latex cap, which really has no shape or anything pertaining to safety. And the results were that it reduced the impact with a wall or another swimmer by over 50%, which is just amazing. But when you think about what we're comparing to, there's nothing there. So, and then Dr. Gary Hall Sr., we met at an ASCA conference back in 2019, and he said he wanted to test our cap to measure how much drag it reduced because there were no wrinkles. So he did his testing and came back and said, top speed, swimming a 50 free, you could cut over 10% in your time, which is milliseconds. That means a lot for swimmers, right? So hit some resistance just because people don't want to change, but I think it's just really going to have to be a slow burn and just getting the word out that if you spend, call it $30, $40 on 3 to 4 $10 swim caps a year, and you spend $34.95 on a Hammerhead, unless your head grows, it's not going to tear, or you're not going to outgrow it. I mean, you're not going to wear it out. So there's really value there once we kind of peel back the layers and have a meaningful conversation with a lot of these coaches.
Well, like you said, the average swimmer is going through so many bathing caps a year, whether they're the cheap ones that are not silicone or silicone. That's the number one piece of debris we would pick up at any swim meet, from the bottom of the pool, from the deck. So it's a complete no-brainer to me that the center part is reinforced by that honeycomb because of the purpose that it serves. And I think that no different from people trying to revolutionize tights and hosiery. If you can make a stronger tight that's $40, I don't necessarily want to spend $40 on a pair of tights, but if I'm not buying 10 pairs of tights over the winter, that's a no-brainer. Yeah. I'm so excited with what you said, that it's maybe being received in a wider environment, because swimming lessons is the other thing that immediately came to mind for me. Your 7, 8, 9-year-old swimmers who are just learning how to swim. They're kind of scared to put their ears in. They're not reaching back properly, and they smack their heads so hard. So that's amazing to hear.
You know, another area where we really made impact is with open water swimmers and triathletes. So they have those mass starts, and they're literally vying for position to get into the open water and, you know, win the race. So we've had a very high acceptance level and passionate customers from that marketplace, which excites us.
That's really, really interesting. There's a woman I interviewed a number of months ago. Her name is Dr. Katie Cleesby, and she did her dissertation actually on lifeguards supervising these open water swimming events. And one of the high risk areas she identified in her research was exactly what you just said, those mass starts when there's hundreds of people trying to seed themselves in a position to get to the front of the pack. All these kicking injuries, head injuries, very, very serious body collisions.
The other thing we learned is on those buoy turns, you know, they're congested again in that area. Joy McAdams, she's an Ironman competitor. She's an amazing, dynamic woman, mother of 5, and she loves Hammerhead. And she said, I was swimming, and I think she said St. George, Utah, and the winds picked up, and there were white caps, and there were the observing kayaks, you know, getting thrown about in the water. And she said, I almost got hit in the head by the oar. Or, you know, some swimmers are in open water that has debris. So it really has a place in that market for those amazing athletes.
Well, and I'm so glad what you said, that you sought independent lab testing, because I was going to ask you about that, but also knowing that there is no product category with an established standard. So I think it's really great to see that you created your own test to do that. I have worked in ASTM and ISO committees where we write product standards, and when it's a new product, sometimes there is no standard at all. But I strongly believe that, you know, when a product is very good, as yours sounds like it is, it doesn't mean that there should be no testing done. It is great to see that there is some measurable reduction in the impact, because I think a lot of parents don't realize those pools are tile and concrete. Right? Maybe if you're lucky, it's only a stainless steel panel, but this is not baseball with a padded wall. This is tile and concrete that the average little brain is hitting.
When we raised money for the product, to develop the product, and I will say from idea day to when we shipped our first product, it was 5 years. We raised just under $1 million, and we went through 3 different prototypes. So it wasn't just a quick fix and, you know, all of a sudden your product's to market. The other interesting thing that I share is that there's a gentleman by the name of George Ward, who was, I believe he was the senior director of risk ops over at USA Swimming. And in our early years, I had a lot of conversations with him just about what's the State of the Union with injuries within USA Swimming. And he shared certain information that was appropriate to share with us. But he also told me a story that he was approached 2 or 3 times by people that came up with a product like this, but it was made out of different material, and he gave feedback to these inventors and never heard from them again. So what he was doing is really validating that we're not the first company or people to try to solve this problem. The other person that shared a great story was at a U.S. Swim School Association conference. John Mix, who's the wonderful man and founder of Finis, which is a swim equipment manufacturer. He and his wife stopped by the table where David and I were exhibiting and said, well, I tried to make a product like this. And we're like, really? That's so inspiring. The fact that we made it to market was great, but just that a great mind like him with such great technical products that he sells, that he had the same idea that would let us know that we're on the right track.
You have to give yourself full credit. Bootstrapping a company, bootstrapping a product is not a small thing. Speaking just as a small business owner myself, I mean, you grind and grind and grind, and nobody understands and nobody's watching. And to your point, that feedback, those iterations is so important, because if somebody proceeds with a product without that feedback loop, they're going to get to market and discover all these things that the average person notices, but they were so blinded by their own passion for their dream that they missed. So I think that's wonderful that you share that. WD-40, they say it was the 40th iteration. That's why they named it WD-40. It took them 40 iterations to get it.
I didn't know that.
So let's chat a little bit about how USA Swimming has received this product, or any other regulatory authorities that you've engaged with, like swimming in your local state or region. Has it been permitted in competition, or what does that look like in your experience to date?
So it's not been rejected. It's not been embraced either by USA Swimming. The feedback we've gotten from them is that, we're kind of compared to the other big manufacturers that are partnered with them. And we don't have deep pockets like that. So we're not in a position to be able to, really be on a even playing level with them. Although we would like to. We see this as bigger than us. We've always seen it as bigger than us, that it's not associated with my name or David's name. It's just, we're trying to make a sport safer. It's happened in so many sports around us. And we're really hoping that at some point they'll share that perspective with us. I have no problem having a partnership where they can compensate them by profit sharing, or, we're willing to get very creative, but we really just want to make swimming safer again. I think a lot of parents and people in general think of swimming as a non-combat sport, and it is a non-combat sport, but it is a contact sport, as you know. You've given multiple examples today, and I've heard so many stories on these roundtables. So we're just really hoping that there'll be a change of heart there, and that they'll welcome this as a solution for the sport, not for any individual.
So I can be a little bit more explicit where you need to be diplomatic. There's a lot of these big legacy brands that have very strong financial partnerships with USA Swimming, Swim Canada, FINA, and I can say as an independent consultant, it doesn't necessarily make them unbiased. And so when you see these 5-year partnerships, it really strongly endorses brands for financial gain, which does not necessarily mean the correct product for the correct swimmer. So I definitely can imagine what's happening behind the scenes on something like that. And so for the average person who's watching this video, looking to recognize that there are brands and products out there for swimmers that may not get that feature placement at a special event, at a swim meet, at a conference, and they're still good products, I think it's at least a step in the right direction that it wasn't rejected. I think that's a step in the right direction, but a very small step. So you mentioned earlier the retail cost, people can expect that to be around $35. Where would somebody find this product? Because it may not be carried at traditional retailers in their area, or any of those companies that only carry legacy swim products.
Great question. You can go direct to our website. It's www.hammerheadswimcaps.com. If you want to place a team order, we are able to put logos and personalization on the caps. Here's an example in one color. And then we did this for the national team, for the artistic swimming team. I think this is 6 colors. And then we have this sample as well. So we can definitely personalize it and put logos on the caps. We do have bulk quantity discounts too. So that makes it more affordable. if you're buying in bulk.
You also mentioned that there is an affiliate program. So are teams or swim schools able to set something
Yeah.
up if they want to endorse this for their users?
Absolutely. Once you sign up, you're going to create a personal link, and you can use that personal link with social media, with emailing your swim parents, communicating that to your network. And if anyone clicks on that link and purchases, then everything's completely automated. When you sign up, you attach your payment method of choice, PayPal or Venmo or something like that. And we would then be able to compensate you based on the percentage of profit sharing we have set up with you. The more you recommend products, the more compensation you'll get. So if anyone is interested in talking more about that and how they can go from the standard 10% compensation all the way up to 30%, I'm happy to talk with them about it. It's been a great program. We provide assets, both product images with athletes wearing Hammerhead, and we have videos, a lot of our better videos that really cut to the chase about the value proposition of Hammerhead. That's all out there for them to access.
No, I think that's great. I would say I'm not generally into affiliate programs, but with something like this, where I think the average parent should be given the choice if they would like to equip their child with something additional to what a team is offering or to what a facility is offering. I know of a lot of parents in my sphere who would be very interested in equipping their kids, especially when we talk about those younger ages I mentioned earlier, like 6, 7, 8, 9. The kids are excited. They don't think about their head. You think about their head. So this is a great opportunity for people to provide that if it is something that a parent wants to purchase.
I don't know if you know who Abby Fish is. She's an amazing, very technical coach. She has clinics, and she's invited to speak at a lot of swim conferences because of her expertise and attention to the technical form of swimming. She loves Hammerhead. And when we talked to her about where does she see it fitting in with her training, she said, I want them swimming the correct form. And if they're swimming the correct form, their head's down, and they will go into the wall more aggressively, knowing they have something on their head. So she feels it's something that can help on the confidence side, and also if the count is wrong, that at least there's something there to protect them. So it's for all levels of swimmers.
Well, and I think, like you said, it's also for all types of sport as well. I played water polo just for 2 years. And if you've ever seen a water polo game, the swim off alone is quite dangerous. And there's lots of opportunity to have protection like this underneath the water polo player's cap. There's no regulations that I'm aware of what can't be under that type of cap. Even let's say it wasn't allowed in competitive games, but as a training tool during practice, whether it's water polo, even I'm thinking intro to diving, backflips, kids when they curve their head into the wall, underwater hockey, so many activities. It's not a panacea, but it's going to reduce a known issue.
We actually have a prototype of a water polo cap, and we took out the honeycomb sections and put them into the water polo cap. So there's one on the front, there's the side. I think there's a couple on the top and then on this side. And that accomplishes having a buffer there to minimize that impact when a ball or an elbow or something comes at their head. We've also talked to coaches where they're divers, if they're starting to go off the higher platforms and they don't enter correctly, that there are head injuries that way. So we're open to talking to any aquatic athletes, even though it's a smaller market. Another niche for us is with what used to be called synchronized swimming, now artistic swimming, which is really acrobatics in very tight formations above and below the water. And they are amazing athletes. It's just beautiful to watch. And of course, they can't wear a swim cap during their performances, but it's definitely something that's penetrated into the training schedule for a lot of artistic swimmers.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I think this Olympics this summer, Paris 2024, the first time I'd watched synchro or artistic swimming in a number of years, and that was exactly my observation, is it's gone from what I would think of as more dancing to literally leaps and acrobatics, throwing people through the air. Like you said, they're so close together to achieve those formations. I was really impressed at their athleticism, but also the risk that goes into the times that you had to do that wrong to get it right.
Correct. And their training is a team. So if one cog of that wheel is pulled out because of injury, that affects the whole routine and the participants. And that's what I heard straight from the mouths of the coaches and the athletes in that sport. And their concussion rate's pretty high.
You mentioned earlier on about special needs populations have embraced this product. So could you fill us in a little bit on what need that solves for them?
So we've worked with Special Olympics Minnesota for 3 or 4 years, despite COVID. And a lot of times they just need the extra head protection. Maybe their movements in the water are a little less consistent. Some of them like it because it's sensory sensitive and that's the only cap they'll wear. They love the idea that it could make them faster without the drag. And recently, from one of the roundtable meetings, I met up with an athletic director from the state of Illinois. It's their state School of the Blind and Hearing or Visually Impaired. And so we've had just a great conversation. Their teams aren't really big, but the way that they stop their athletes at the wall is with a broom with a tennis ball at the end, and they tap them. And
Bop it, twist it, pull it, twist it, bop.
And what's important is that they are tapping them at the same place at the same time. So it becomes critical for their sake of their heads hitting the wall at the stop or the turn, that training is consistent. So they just love the idea of having some extra protection in case something goes wrong or there's a little bit less consistency due to coaching changes. So I've been having some wonderful conversations with schools around the country in that space. It's very inspirational. We've worked with a lot of autistic swimmers and people that just have sensitivities. So we're really proud of that.
I think that one of the considerations the average person may not be aware of when they think about swimming in a pool is just how hard it is to get that finish or that flip turn correct each and every time. One of the things I talked about with somebody in our recap of the Olympics was the number of disqualifications where people misjudged surfacing at the correct place. And these are very experienced athletes who've trained for tens of thousands of hours. And some days you just get it wrong. Some days the flags are in the wrong place. Some days the pool is a couple inches shorter than you realize in older facilities. And so to rely on just a tap when you're a blind swimmer, I mean, that's incredible that they have that trust in their partner. But I'm with you. It would make sense to have another layer of protection.
It can't hurt. It's better to have it, not need it, than need it and have an injury.
And from the sensory piece, I'm guessing that it's a more solid feeling on their head because it feels more substantial. Is that it?
They like the material it's made of. It doesn't pull their hair. Some of them have a problem wearing winter caps. So knit caps. The caregivers I've worked with and the coaches have said, if we can get them to wear your cap, it will help multiply across their spectrum of what other headwear they could wear that they wouldn't have before.
So maybe less tight, less squeezing on the head, because by nature your cap is much larger to accommodate the honeycomb than having to stretch out a smaller brand new cap.
I wear the size medium and I don't have a lot of hair, but it's not constricting. That's the difference between the Hammerhead and the dome caps. So dome caps are designed to eliminate the wrinkles. They don't have our honeycomb system inside, but they're constricting when you put them on because they have that one purpose. And so a lot of swimmers that are in the water for a long time that want the smooth surface will like our cap better because it's comfortable. So I wouldn't say our cap is extremely constricting for them, but I would say it's a combination of the material, the fit, and if they hadn't worn a swim cap before, having Hammerhead on would reduce the amount of noise, background noise that sometimes is overstimulation for them.
Yeah, pools are a very loud environment, and I know for myself, I barely wear a bathing cap unless I really, really need to. I don't like the tightness. I have one cap that I've cut out over 10 years, and it's exactly to my fit, but it's definitely one of those things where a lot of competitive swimmers are told you have to wear a cap. It reduces drag, keeps your hair together if you have a lot of hair, but it's not always a pleasant experience for everyone, regardless of the concussion safety issue.
And especially the people managing the pools. They keep the filters cleaner, and there's a lot of benefits to the people running the facilities too if you've got a swim cap on.
So we've talked about the story behind the product. We've talked about where people can go to find the product. Is there anything else that you want to cover, Theresa, about this product in terms of the impact it's had in your life?
Well, it's my full-time job. It has been since 2016, and it's my passion. My son swims in college now, and we love the sport. We love not only just swimming, but we're all plugged in during the Olympics watching all the other types of aquatic sports. I just need help from the ground level, just getting the word out about it. And any help anyone can contribute and to be a small part of making the sport safer, you'd have my eternal gratitude.
We will put your contact information, the website, in the video description box below. So it sounds like an open call. People can reach out to you to talk about the product, their interest in the product, and partnerships going forward from any type of aquatic sport in any type of country to get this going. And really, it sounds like your passion is just preventing people from getting hurt.
Yes, absolutely.
Amazing. Well, I want to thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's been great talking to you. You've got such great questions and such great life experiences to make this conversation much more colorful.
For me, these interviews is very much what I'm interested in. It's not always good for the algorithm, but I immediately saw your product in a local Facebook group and did not even need to click on the link to go, we all need this.